I sold my copy of the Oracle, the new cover. So all I got is, I think this might be my last old cover, maybe, yeah, old cover of the Oracle with the saucy guy on the cover. And then they go to the more discreet covers, the more fantasy vibing colors, romanticy vibing covers. But this book won silver in 2018 in fantasy for the President's Award at the Florida Authors Publishers Association Book Awards. But the monster in particular that I wanted to bring to your attention is a very interesting dragon that I found in medieval bestiaries. Now, most dragons have some sort of lore or legends or stories of old attached to them, but this one in particular was strictly something listed for travelers and merchants beware. And I liked that idea. It's not noted to be a very large monster. It was called the Jaculus, or javelin. And it was a snake-like, tiny armed dragon with a long metallic beak that would fall from the trees like a javelin or spear and attack people and things below and hunt. And all I could think is, could a werewolf really beat that? So here is my boys encountering this creature, so to speak. And like I said, this is from the Oracle, Book 3 in the Cedric series. There was about a day's walk left of the forest before they would find themselves in an open air of the mountain's summit. The sun was fading, and Roma Santa grunted, looking back at where Cedric and Angeline sat on Barushka. Barushka's the horse, by the way. This would be their last chance to rest under some cover. Barushka sidled, his feet stomping the forest floor and ears folding back, listening to something from behind them. Roma Santa and Nectimus, both werewolves, by the way, flicked their ears forward, searching for the sound that had unnerved the large shagful. Somewhere in the trees, the sound of claws against wood scraped ever closer behind them. Nose twitching, there was no mistaking the scent as the one Roma Santa had picked up on by the cave weeks ago. It was on their heels, a sense of aggression in the scent this time. Roma Santa rolled his shoulder, his body eager to give chase. Nodding to one another, Cedric watched the two werewolves split off, racing into the forest in opposite directions. "Stay on, Barushka," whispered Cedric to Angeline, leaving the saddle. "What is it?" Angeline was pulling her bow off over her head, ready to take any action needed. "Is it going to attack finally?" "I think so, but..." Cedric stopped, listening and peering up into the trees. "I don't think we're its target." Angeline looked up towards the direction Roma Santa had ran to see bark and leaves twisting their way to the ground. Roma Santa is the target then. Turning to catch the flurry of debris, he crossed his arms. "We'll wait here for the time being. The old man can handle this." She shifted in her saddle. "Are you sure?" He frowned, leaning against a tree. "Don't forget, I still haven't beaten him in a fight yet." The weight of Roma Santa's claws pounded hard against the ground, his nose sniffing, tracking the serpentine-scented beast that had followed him, scurrying in the trees above. Satisfied he was the primary target, he slowed to a stop and peered up into the trees. Leaves were knocked loose where it had rushed through the upper half of the towering firs. Spinning around, following the sounds of claws against bark, he again missed his chance to spot the creature. Growling made drool drip off his jaw in anticipation of a fight, frustration adding to his air. He was tiring of this game of hide-and-seek it had played since he discovered its scent trailing behind them. The sun was starting to fade, and he tensed, unsure who would gain the advantage. Piercing pain ripped through the backside of his left shoulder, scraping across the shoulder blade. Barking in a rage, he spun around, swiping. His claws sliced through nothing but air and falling leaves. The creature had attacked too quick. He hadn't caught even a glimpse of it. Hot blood snaked down his backside, dabbling across the leaves at his feet. His eyes raced around, his ears flicking, desperate to find where the tiny beast had vanished. Another piercing pain ripped across his other shoulder, rattling him with an agony. Foam dripped from his chin, growling. Anger fueled his failed attempts to catch his opponent again. He had failed to identify the creature. Night had taken over, steam rolling off the heat of his own blood pooling at his feet. His back ached and throbbed. A branch snapped overhead, bringing his eyes back to the canopy. Fighting to check each branch he saw, he searched for any movement. A stabbing sensation dug deep into his lower left back. Dropping to his knees, he howled, engulfed by pain. Tiny claws dug into his sides, working their way into his ribs. Snarling, he failed to reach the snake-like creature, ripping apart his back. Blue and silver scales sparkled in the moonlight as it wildly twisted apart at his back. Oh, I'm reading things. Wildly twisted to avoid his grip. Pushing back the agony, he flung himself backwards, letting himself fall. Claws dug deeper into his flesh, but the tiny reptile squeaked. He threw all his weight between him and the ground. Roaring from his injuries, Romacenta continued to push hard against the dirt, trapping the beast. Fangs and claws nipped and scratched the tearing of his flesh far lighter than the first 3 injuries he had endured. Rolling, cracking a few of the serpent's bones, he gripped it in the middle, pinning it to the ground under his claw. So, sorry, not the smoothest reading, but you get the idea that it's tiny. It doesn't have to be big to be super destructive, but it's quick, it's agile, it's falling for freaking trees and ripping this werewolf down piece by piece. And I'm a terrible author who tortures her characters with creatures like this. But you can read lots more of Torture and Monsters in the Cedric series and know that most of the creatures that you encounter are always, for the most part, from some sort of superstition, lore, mythology, or history. Enjoy.